What's going on, guys? So I got to explain this video really quick. So this Dudleytown video is still my first YouTube video, but the first day I went out to try to shoot it, things didn't go according to plan. I had to stop. It took me way too long, much longer than I thought it would take me to find the entrance to the trail. So I ran out of time, really. And so I wound up stopping at an old cemetery I passed by, not too far from Dudleytown, about 5 minutes away, to see if I could investigate there and maybe pick up some stuff, which I did. But so this video that you're about to watch is me going back a week later. So this is me going back a week later, actually being able to hike into the woods far enough to where I wanted to get to and read the stories at dusk. So that's what this video is. I hope you enjoy. The following video is me at the cemetery the first time I went out. Yeah, some creepy stuff definitely happened. Nothing too crazy, but some really creepy stuff. So be sure to check out that video too. And well, without any further ado, hope you enjoy. All right, so I made it to the top of the mountain. Hard part of the hike is should be over. I'm about to put my GoPro on. From this point on, I'm gonna walk that direction while maintaining a decent bearing on the time, you know, in the sun and stuff. I don't want to. I walk back in the dark, but you know, I don't want the distance. How far I'm walking back in the dark is something I'm not sure, like how far I want to walk yet. Like, I don't want to walk too far in these woods in the dark at night, especially going down that freaking steep ass mountain. So we'll see. I'm gonna keep walking this way, put my GoPro on, and look for a spot to film and a good spot to tell the stories and shoot and stuff. And yeah, continue on. I'm pretty positive that's a bear print. Here, let me put my foot next to it to like scale. I'm a 13. I'm a size 13. So yep, that's probably a black bear print. Sun is getting close. It's getting to be about time where I need to, regardless, I need to hunker down and find a spot. All right, found the spot. This is it. I ain't going any deeper than this. I'm fucking close enough to that place alone. I'll tell you what, if I wasn't alone, I'd go a lot closer, but alone, this is as close as I want to get. So, Dudleytown is literally, you guys are looking right in that direction. That's why this spot is perfect. It's about a mile. I went on the all trails and like looked and measured. It's a little farther than I thought, but I'm still in the same woods. But it's about a mile in that direction over there. So not extremely close, but I'm in the same damn woods, and I'm gonna be in these woods at night in about 15-20 minutes. So let's read some spooky freaking stories about Dudleytown while we are in Dudleytown woods. My name is Doug. I read on your website about haunted buildings, curses on families, and attacks by strange creatures. Well, there's an evil forest in northwestern Connecticut that combines all of those things. My buddy Andy and I knew about the 400-year-old family curse, the weird lightning strikes, sightings of dark spirits, glowing lights, weird creatures, bizarre phenomena of nature, madness, death, insanity, and lives destroyed by the Dudleytown forest. We just never thought it would happen to us. Andy and I grew up in Ellsworth, Connecticut, the best of buds. Every Halloween, we talked about spending the night in the creepy Dudleytown forest. When you grow up in Connecticut, you get used to playing in the woods, but everyone talked about how there was something sinister about the trees up around Dudleytown, and the place was always dark. Of course, no one ever actually spent Halloween there. Even after Andy and I were in high school and could drive, fear always won out over curiosity. Well, fear and girls. You ever notice how girls like to wear skimpy outfits on Halloween, even when it's really cold out? Oh boy. So our senior year finally came. We were each going to different colleges, and this would be our last Halloween together for a while. It's now or never, dude. I said to Andy about 2 weeks before Halloween. Are we really going to do this, or are we going to spend the rest of our lives emailing each other about how we really should have done it that year when we had the chance? Andy rubbed his chin for a moment, probably weighing the choice between really cool bragging rights and hanging out with friends. Yeah, he replied, shrugging. This is our last shot. Let's go for it. Bragging rights 1. Andy and I ended up taking his car on Halloween night and headed out towards Dudleytown. I think back on that moment every day. My life would be completely different now if I had just gone to a party or maybe TP'd someone's house instead. The sun was starting to set as we drove the half hour to Dark Entry Road. Dark Entry Road, man, if this were a movie, people would be laughing. Could it be any more obvious? It's cursed, you know. It's the only forest I've ever heard about that's actually evil, I said. Yeah, I know. All that stuff in England. Henry VII was pissed Edmund Dudley tried to overthrow him, so he chopped his head off and cursed the whole Dudley clan. Andy joked one of the Dudley kids thought he could escape the curse by coming here in the 1700s, but he just brought the curse with him. Remember the dude who bought the place after the Dudleys bolted? His whole family got some weird sickness and croaked. Then there was this general in the Revolutionary War whose wife got struck by lightning, even though it was a clear sky. That dude went mental, I said, trying to remember even more crazy stories we'd heard over the years. Oh, Andy cried. We're leaving out Dr. Clark's nutcase wife. Remember he brought the place in the 1920s? He had to go into New York City for 2 days, and when he got back, his wife was flipping out about that dark creature who ran out of the forest and attacked her. She went mental too, and they put her in the nut house. Even though we continued to laugh at all the horror stories we knew, I was starting to get a little scared. I couldn't admit it to Andy, but by the time we reached Dark Entry Road, which despite its name is actually an idyllic-looking lane that leads into Dudleytown Forest, I was thinking about bagging the whole idea and turning back. Unfortunately for us, Andy parked the car and started to get out. Doug, come on, let's go. We could just go back and hang out with Mike and Jordan instead. Tell them we got lost in the way, I offered. What? Dude, A, we drove all the way out here, and 2, we would get so much crap from them yelling about being complete chickens. I'm gonna see some demons tonight, baby, he yelled. Oh, never a good thing to do. There was no use arguing with him. His reputation was at stake. Now we had to go through with it. We left the car at the start of the road since we told everyone we'd go into the forest on foot, with nothing to protect us except our own wits. The sun was dropping low in the sky. It was starting to get dark. Almost at once, I noticed a total lack of sound. Whereas a second before I could hear the wind in the trees, birds chirping, and the scurrying of squirrels and chipmunks along the fallen leaves, now, nothing. Not a peep. Did it suddenly get colder? Andy asked, turning up his collar and zipping his jacket up. Now that you mention it, the temperature did seem to drop when we stepped in here. And is it just me, or is there no sound whatsoever? Where's the wind? Why don't I hear animals? They're probably all possessed. Mwahaha, Andy shouted, doing the world's worst Count Dracula impression. We continued on in silence. About half a mile in, we heard a weird scratching noise behind us. We looked around, but couldn't see anything. What's that? Andy whispered tensely, pointing to the ground behind them. There, carved into the soft dirt, were the words, "Never return, Satan." Shut up. You just did that on the ground. I'm not a moron, I said, punching Andy in the arm. The Satan part is a little over the top, man. Doug, Andy said seriously, you and I both heard that noise, and I've been standing right next to you the whole time. I didn't do that, dude. Fine, I said. Someone put that there to freak out people like us who are coming in here to check it out. I don't know, said Andy. It looks like it was only drawn there a minute ago. Like it was just scratched into the ground. Look at the piles of dirt around each letter. If this had been here for a while, they would have blown away in the wind. Come on, I said, actually surprised to find myself being the brave one. There are supposed to be some old ruins of Dudleytown houses at the end of this road. Maybe we can spend the night there. As we left Dark Entry Road and entered the dense forest, the final crimson rays of sunlight faded to gray behind the stone foundation of an 18th century house. There's nothing left of this place but some stones, Andy said, peeping over the edge of the foundation. Suddenly a white circle of light moved across the trees. Don't turn the flashlight on yet, I said. Let's wait until it's really dark. Doug? I didn't turn on my flashlight, Andy stammered. Did you? I felt the hairs in the back of my neck stand up. No, I whispered. Then what's that? Andy said, pointing at 3 white glowing orbs dancing among the trees. Not waiting for my reply, Andy took off, running deeper into the woods. Wait for me, dude, I shouted, following my friend. I've got Satan telling me never to return, and now weird orbs flying around. Now is not the time for the two of us to separate. Andy stopped running, and I practically crashed into him. It's really dark, Andy said, trying to catch his breath. I'm going to put my flashlight on so we can find our way back. What about those white floating things? I asked nervously. I don't see them anymore, Andy replied, clinking clicking on his light. I think we should head back. Yeah, I agreed. We're totally telling Mike and Jordan we got lost. I don't care how much grief I get. Now let's get the heck out of here. Andy's eyes suddenly opened wide. Looking down, he began grabbing at his shirt and pants. Doug, get them off me, he shouted. Get them off. I shined my light along Andy's body, but I saw nothing. Get what off you? I asked, alarmed by the terror in my friend's face. There's nothing on you, Andy. The bugs, Andy screamed, clawing at his clothes, his face contorted into a mask of horror. They're crawling all over me. Get them off me. They're eating me alive, Doug. Help. They're not real, Andy, I screamed, recalling stories I had heard about people in Dudleytown suffering from hallucinations. It's just in your mind, dude. You have to focus on me. Andy, focus. Andy dropped to his knees and began yanking at his own hair. He actually tore a bloody clump of hair from his head. Get them off. I grabbed my friend by his shoulders and forced him to his feet and shook him hard. Andy, I shouted, slapping him right in the face. Andy. Andy jerked backwards, pulling away. Breathing hard, he looked down the length of his body. Oh my God, Doug. It was so real. I saw big, disgusting bugs crawling over every inch of my body. I felt them. I felt them bite me. He clawed at his clothes, looking for marks, looking for the creatures that had just tormented him. Come on, I said, grabbing Andy's arm and handing him a bandana to hold against his bleeding head. We're leaving before anything else happens. With each step, the gnawing sense of doom inside me grew. Someone, no, something was watching us. Waiting, small shapes started through the darkness on either side of us. The perfect silence was broken by high-pitched shrieks echoing in the trees. I felt my chest tightening as we retraced our path. Andy clutched his head and breathed hard. I wanted to assure him that we'd be okay. Dark Entry Road was just ahead, I noticed, as we approached the foundation. I was about to say, we're going to get home safe, but before I could speak, a flash of movement caught my eye. We both froze in terror at the sight of a swirling black shape rising from the foundation. The expanding blotch changed shape, its inky blackness so thick it stood out against the night sky. I can't move, Andy groaned through his clenched jaw. I'm trying to force one leg to go in front of the other, but I just can't move. Before I could respond, the shape enveloped me. I gasped for breath. The very life was being sucked from my body. I was about to pass out when images began to fill my mind. Mutilated, maggot-filled corpses lay strewn around me. I knew I'd soon be one of them. And then I blacked out. Soft rays of sunshine woke me. Andy was sprawled out on the forest floor next to me. The corpses were gone. Andy, wake up, I shook him gently. He opened his eyes with a start and jumped to his feet. Without saying a word to me, he headed towards Dark Entry Lane. Wait up, I shouted. Andy turned and peered at me with fear. Never return, he croaked. Those were the last words my best friend ever spoke to me. We made it back home that morning. We had spent the night in Dudleytown and lived. But from that day on, Andy never spoke another word to anyone. The doctors at the institution have tried shock treatment to see if he'll even cry out in pain, but they say he's like a walking dead man. As for me, pre-Dudleytown, I'd always been a happy kid. Post-Dudleytown's another story. The voices and visions start each day around sunset and torture me through the night. Yeah, I don't have to be into a mental hospital like Andy, but I don't exactly get out much. Why didn't I just stay away? Went there, meaning Dudleytown, last fall/winter, so I can give you a pretty accurate description of what you'll encounter. I went there with two friends one night around 11 p.m. Everyone said not to drive straight up to the gate because of the high possibility of police, but we didn't really have great directions and we ended up doing just that. We didn't see a soul the last 5 to 10 miles before we arrived, so we decided to park a ways down a very long driveway. I don't recommend that at all, though, your choice. I don't recommend that either. I had printed out a map of the main access roads, which are trails now, of the town, and we ended up walking them all. As another person stated, it is extremely quiet. You can literally hear nothing. No wind, no animals, just your footsteps. Before getting there, I wasn't a believer in ghosts, really, but I loved doing stuff like this. After leaving, I'd have to say nothing changed for me. There were little odd things that happened, but nothing you would ever go wide-eyed over. The two events that were out of the ordinary for us were when we had to hunch down under a fallen branch that was blocking the path. As soon as we passed under, all I heard was what sounded like a tarp roaring in the wind above us. Keep in mind, it was dead quiet the whole time, so naturally we stood there looking around with flashlights at the trees. Right as we were doing that, we could all hear something rubbing up against my friend's backpack when there was nothing besides me. The only other thing I found odd was when I went to light a cig, no wind at all, yet the flame with my lighter was acting like there were 15 to 20 mile per hour winds. That's creepy. Do not go alone. I really mean this. I say this because we were scared a little, not because of anything stated above, but the fact that we could hear wolves howling around us the whole time we were in there. I don't believe in ghosts, but there's no doubting the devastating attack of a pack of hungry animals. No wolves around here. There was probably coyotes, but still. Definitely creepy. First and foremost, holy shit. I haven't told this story to many people since I have second-guessed myself over the years, but after reading a story that had dramatic similarities, I figured I had to tell. Dudleytown is real and is not to be fucked with. I went back there in 1999 with Greg and Dave after fishing the Housatonic River all day. It was late afternoon, and we'd probably have a couple of hours to explore before it got dark. Back around this time, you could still park at the trailhead and walk in easily. I've been there twice, and the first time we went in through dark entry. This time I decided to take the Bald Mountain entrance. On the hike, it got eerily quiet, and we kept hearing a dog barking that never showed even though its sound kept getting closer. We walked off the trail near the well in the center of town, and they were surrounded by thousands of frogs on the ground everywhere. They were all over the ground, and no matter where you stepped, you were either stepping on frogs or having them leaping at your legs. Nearby, a shadow darted off into the woods, spooking the hell out of me since the sun was facing in the opposite direction, thus creating shadows opposite of the one we saw. Between the shadow, the dog, and the frogs, we decided to leave. I jokingly yelled, "Dudleytown is bullshit. Fuck this place. Oh god." Teenage idiocy. That's for sure. On the way out, our footprints in the trail were freshly wiped clean, and "Help me" was written in the sand. I assumed Greg or Dave did it, but we were together the whole time. I got goosebumps, feeling as though something was watching us. Mind you, I have grown up in the woods, and my family had a primitive hunting cabin in Goshen that I spent a lot of time at. I'm no stranger to being alone deep in the woods, but this place just felt off. After leaving and getting home, I went to sleep and woke up violently ill. Profusely vomiting and unable to keep anything down, I went to the doctor. After multiple tests, the doctor said I had a strain of food poisoning that he had never seen before. I was put on a liquid diet for a week and lost 15 pounds. About 2 weeks later, I felt better and never had any recurring issues related to it. Doug would tell me of seeing a child run off into the woods as he drove by Bald Mountain Road at night sometimes. I recently brought this up to Greg and Dave, and they both remembered it exactly the same. Dave said he went back once because paranormal activity is a curiosity of his, and more happening occurred as well. Orbs and crying sounds that kept moving in the woods. Dave, as well as myself, are avid outdoorsmen and would recognize, say, a coyote or an owl. He said it sounded alien/demonic. Either way, after 18 years, all three of us remember it exactly the same. From the dog to the frogs and the shadow to the "help me" written in the sand. Oh yeah, and they both were adamant that neither of them wrote that in the sand. They both asked me if I did, which I sure as hell didn't. I no longer live in Connecticut, and here access to Dudleytown has been prohibited, but there is definitely something strange about those woods. And I kept a comment in here. There was a comment on the story. I want to read it because the comment is pretty fucking creepy. When I was in college in New England one night, the Warrens came for a presentation. The whole evening was "look at this photo, could be a ghost," and some creepy audio. After the presentation was over and people were getting up to leave, Lorraine came back on stage and said, "Kids, whether you believe this tonight, everything we've said tonight, or not, do one thing for me. Never, ever go to Dudleytown." Shannon from Manchester, Connecticut. My boyfriend's family moved to Sharon, Connecticut in early 1998. His mother's fiance has lived in that area all his life, and they had been telling me a little something about Dudleytown. I was kind of skeptical, so I decided to check it out. Ever since I was little, I had had this feeling, if you will. Many people don't believe this, but I can tell if some place is haunted. Actually, you can feel the energy. There is a house in Manchester, Connecticut, where I live, that is supposedly haunted by the spirit of a little girl. She was tortured and handcuffed in a crawl space of the house and left there for dead. And I walked into the house and I instantly got cold chills. My whole body temperature dropped. I could feel her there. She was following me around the house. So when my boyfriend's family told me about Dudleytown, I had a natural curiosity to find out if it was true or not. So the next time I went out to Sharon, I asked them to show me where it was. They had told me stories about Dark Entry Road. My boyfriend's mother, like myself, could feel the presence of a spirit. So she and I drove into the beginning of Dark Entry Road and got out of the car to see if we could feel anything. Sure enough, the second I stepped out of the car, I got the coldest chill, and my body temp just dropped. I could definitely feel something. There have been quite a few people I have talked to out in that area, and that have told me that the town doesn't like you to get familiar with it, and that if you do, it will change you. I have heard several people tell me about a story about how they were driving through or walking through there, having it made a daily route to or from work, and they have seen this mass. This black as can be mass that just follows you. Sounds very similar to that black mass in the first story. Creepy. Now Sarah, Connecticut resident. I have had some strange experiences in there. In July of 1998, my fiance and I, as well as 2 other friends, went up there to check out the so-called curse. Problem started as we pulled up Bald Mountain Road. We all felt this feeling. It was different for all of us. My friend, Jen, felt stabbing pains in her stomach, and my back got really tense, and the 2 others got a creepy feeling. Around 11:30 p.m., we parked our car next to the entrance to one of the trails leading into Dudleytown. We all got out of the car, grabbed the flashlights and cameras, and started walking down the trail. We heard nothing. Dead silence. No wind, no animals, nothing. We walked only a few feet and we heard this noise. The sound is difficult to describe, but it sounded something like a huge metal dumpster dragging against asphalt. At this point, we were freaking out, but we kept going. When we got to the entrance, Jen started reading the sign, and all of a sudden I took the flashlight and shined it at the ground, where we just walked, and we saw the words in huge letters, "Never return, Satan." What really freaked us out was that, first off, the writing was fresh, like it was done about 2 minutes before we got there. Secondly, we drove over that spot, but there was no tire tracks, and we walked over it, there were no footprints. We're like, okay, this isn't good. Let's go. So we left. There is definitely something in there. The Dark Entry Forest Association still owns most of the land that Dudleytown once stood on. There's a group of homes on Bald Mountain Road that are very secluded from the main roads and the rest of the civilization. I don't know how those people can live in those houses. With those woods right in your backyard? Nope. No. Hell no. Regardless of whether there was ever a curse or not, Satanists and black witches are performing rituals in the area that was Dudleytown. Robin Boston Barron, a ghost hunter and Dudleytown historian, said, "I once saw the body spine of a cow lying in one of the cellar holes in Dudleytown. It was definitely part of some ritual. Some rocks lying along the trails have been painted or carved with symbols, and several people have been arrested for lighting fires or trespassing in the area. Recently, this past October, the DEF announced they would no longer allow hikers to go onto the land. The area that was Dudleytown is quiet again for the 3rd time in its historic and colorful life. That was in 2000 or 2001. Early 2000s is when they did that, so that's how old this blog is. But, yeah. There we have it. There are Dudleytown stories read in Dudleytown woods. Well, whether or not the locals consider these exact woods to be Dudleytown or not, I don't know. Like I said, it's a mile in that direction, but there's no road separating. If you were to follow this trail about a mile further, you would walk right into Dudleytown. I used to go right, like literally it used to be 300, like this trail would go like about 300 yards away from Dudleytown. It was stupid close. And then as I just read there, so many people were going in there and doing rituals and satanic shit that, you know, they just closed it. I don't blame them. The people that lived around there were getting sick and tired of, you know, at fucking 11 o'clock at night looking in the woods and seeing some fire or hearing weird shit, you know, people coming. So I don't blame them at all for closing off that area to hikers and to, you know, to just people. I don't blame them at all. And who knows if, you know, I mean, weird stuff did happen, like real stuff, like the Revolutionary War general's wife getting struck by lightning on a blue sky day and dying. Legit. Before then, there were things that happened to people that lived there, and it's always, again, the thing with Dudleytown is it's just like in those stories that I just read. There's the same kind of stuff over and over again. For the deep history stuff, which I'm sure most of you are aware of, for the people in the late 1700s, I can't remember their names, but that first built those houses and stuff and lived there, the ones that eventually went mental would talk about strange creatures in the woods at night, creeping them out and fucking with them, right? Weird vibes. Fast forward about 150 years or so, 175 years, and you've got the famous story about, I can't remember his name, but the doctor and his wife. And when the doctor came back after that, getting called back to New York to do an emergency surgery or something, when he came back and his wife had lost it, what was she talking about? Strange creatures walking around in the woods. And then these stories, for all like the personal accounts, when you go online and you read these stories and you collect them and you read them all these different personal accounts from people that went in there to explore and stuff in like the 80s and 90s. Similarities, the writing in the sand, either help me or scary shit, never return, Satan, writing in the sand, the strange noise that's insanely hard to describe before the stuff in the sand appears, the blacker than black mass that goes around and follows people in the woods over there. Like, it's the similarities. It's either because it's legit and it's real, which is more likely, like there was some nasty energy there. Now, whether the energy had always been there, or, which is considering the old stories is probably likely, maybe what the Satanists did and stuff, just amplified the energy. I'm not sure. I'll tell you what though, I was doing good, like I was fine. The darker it gets, the more unsettling I'm starting to feel in my gut. Yeah, it's time to pack it up and start walking back. Thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please be sure to subscribe so you can see all the cool content I have coming up. I'm going to be spending the night at the 1754 House Inn soon. I'll be doing ghost story reads, investigating, the works. It's one of the oldest, most haunted inns in the entire country. Gordon Ramsay stayed there and had some creepy stuff happen to him, so I'm going to be telling those stories and more. Please be sure to check that out when the time comes. Can't wait for that. I'm also going to be investigating and exploring some abandoned asylums here in Connecticut while also doing ghost story reads, so I've got so much cool stuff planned. So please be sure to subscribe if you want to see all that upcoming stuff. I can't wait for it. Thank you all again so much.